The afternoon sun beat down on Route 66, casting long shadows like bony fingers stretching across the cracked blacktop. The air thick with the scent of hot asphalt, desert sage, and just a whiff of motor oil that clung to everything out here in the Arizona heat. A dry wind, a real dust devil, whispered through the scrub brush, leaving a fine brown coat on every surface. The gas station at mile marker 47 stood silent, its faded red and white sign creaking like an old man's bones. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed and flickered, their pale light mixing with the golden sunlight that streamed through the grime-covered windows. The coffee machine gurgled in the corner, filling the cramped convenience store with the bitter smell of day-old brew. It was one of those places where time just slowed down, where not much ever happened, until it did. Hank, the hammer. Thompson stood by pump number 3, his weathered hands gripping the gas nozzle, with the kind of patience only a 68-year-old man could have. His silver hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and deep lines told stories across his tanned face. Stories etched in sweat and sun. He wore his old leather vest like a second skin. The Hell's Angels patch on the back, faded, but still there, still visible. Hank. He moved slower these days. His knees ached from decades of riding, and his back carried the weight of all those years on 2 wheels. But his eyes, steel gray and sharp as broken glass, they still held the same fire as when he helped start this chapter, 42 years ago. He was filling up his worn 79 shovelhead, a bike that had been with him longer than most people he knew. Now, before we go any further, if you believe in respect, dignity, and standing up against injustice, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, share this video, and subscribe to the channel. And let us know in the comments where you're watching from, because stories like this, they remind us that appearances can be deceiving, and that karma always finds a way. A patrol car screeched into the gas station, lights flashing, but no real emergency. Deputy Chad Billings stepped out, adjusting his belt and sunglasses with the arrogance of a man who thought his badge made him untouchable. 26 years old, fresh out of the academy, and itching to prove himself in ways that had nothing to do with protecting and serving. Billings swaggered up to Hank, his hand resting on his holster. He sneered as he took in the old man's vest, the motorcycle, the tattoos that time had faded. He demanded to know what we had here, calling him another old biker playing pretend. He wanted to see his license and registration, addressing him as Grandpa. Loud enough for everyone in the parking lot to hear, Hank reached slowly for his wallet, his movements careful, deliberate. He handed over his documents, not saying a word. Billings snatched them, barely even glancing at the paperwork. He snarled that Hank's kind made him sick, riding around like they owned the road, scaring decent folks. Then, he threw the license onto the dusty ground and ordered Hank to pick it up, the other customers. They watched in silence. A mother pulled her kids closer. An elderly couple looked away, uncomfortable, but unwilling to step in. Hank bent down slowly, his knees protesting, and retrieved his license from the dirt. He looked up at the young deputy, those gray eyes, and something in his gaze made Billings falter. Just for a second, but only a second, Billings told him to get out of his sight, and to tell his little biker gang to stay out of his jurisdiction. Hank rode off without a word, the rumble of his Harley fading into the desert heat. But what Deputy Billings didn't know was that among the witnesses at that gas station was a retired detective named Mike Finnegan, a man who had served 30 years on the force and knew exactly who Hank the Hammer Thompson was. Finnegan made a phone call, then another, within an hour. The story had traveled through channels that young Deputy Billings couldn't even dream of. Hank Thompson wasn't just any old biker. He was a founding member of the Arizona chapter, a Vietnam vet who had earned 2 Purple Hearts, and a man who had quietly donated over $3 million to local charities over the past 2 decades. He had funded the Police Athletic League for 15 years. He had paid for Sheriff Earl Johnson's own daughter's surgery when insurance refused to cover it. The entire department knew Hank. They respected him. Some of them owed him debts they could never repay. When Sheriff Earl Johnson got the call, his face went white. He told his secretary to clear his schedule, jumped into his personal vehicle, and drove straight to the gas station where the incident had occurred. Meanwhile, word had spread through a different network as well. 112 motorcycles were already gathering at the chapter clubhouse, their riders furious, but disciplined, waiting for Hank's word on how to respond. But Hank, ever the patient man, just sat on his porch, waiting for what he knew was coming. 2 hours after the incident, a black sedan pulled up to Hank's modest ranch house. Sheriff Johnson stepped out, his uniform crisp, but his face heavy with shame. He walked up the gravel path alone. Hat in hand, Hank sat in his rocking chair on the front porch, a glass of iced tea sweating in the Arizona heat beside him. He watched the sheriff approach, with the same calm he had shown at the gas station. Sheriff Johnson started by addressing him formally, his voice thick with emotion. He said he had come personally, because what happened that day was unacceptable, inexcusable. That deputy did not represent what the department stood for. Hank said nothing. He just listened. The sheriff kept talking, acknowledging that Hank had done more for the community than most people would ever know. He had paid for the sheriff's little girl's heart surgery when they had nowhere else to turn. He had supported the families of fallen officers. He had given opportunities to kids who had none. Johnson's voice cracked as he expressed his deep, personal sorrow. That one of his officers had treated Hank like a common criminal, right in front of the whole damn town. Hank finally spoke, his voice low and steady. Like distant thunder, he said that young man needed to learn that a badge doesn't make someone a man. Respect does. The sheriff nodded and promised that the deputy would be suspended pending a full review, and that he would be required to complete extensive training on community relations and professional conduct. He gave his word. Hank looked out at the desert horizon, then back at the sheriff. He said he'd ridden these roads for 42 years and had seen cops who were heroes and cops who were cowards, with most falling somewhere in between. He paused, then added that the young man still had time to become better, if he chose to. Sheriff Earl Johnson reached inside his jacket and pulled out an envelope. Inside was a formal letter of apology, directly from the department. Alongside it, he included his personal contact information. He told Hank the Hammer Thompson that if he ever needed anything, at all, to call him directly. No questions asked. As the sheriff drove away, the distant rumble of motorcycles grew louder and louder. 112 riders appeared over the ridge, their chrome gleaming in the setting Arizona sun. They'd come to stand with their brother, ready for a fight, but instead found him sitting peacefully, a slight smile crossing his weathered face. The old man, Hank, raised his glass of iced tea in a silent toast. Justice, it seemed, had arrived, without a single engine needing to roar in anger. Sometimes, silence speaks volumes. And before we wrap things up here, we have one special request for you. Comment below with the words, "Respect has no age." Show the world that you stand with Hank and everyone else who's ever been judged based on their appearance instead of their character. What would you have done in Hank's position? Would you have stayed calm, like he did? Or would you have demanded answers right there, on the spot? Let us know what you think in the comments. If this story moved you, please hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Every click, every share, helps us bring more stories of dignity, respect, and unexpected karma to people all around the world. Your support truly makes a difference, because sometimes the most powerful people are not the ones who shout the loudest. They're the ones who have earned their respect through a lifetime of quiet actions, waiting patiently for the truth to speak for itself. And the truth always comes out.